Hello everyone. Hello Sir Ali. This is the presentation of the Group 5 on Article 14 and 15 on the 1987 Philippine Constitution. So next slide please. Next slide. So this is the presenters of the Group 5. Next slide. And this will be the topic that we'll be discussing about in our group discussion for Article 14 and 15. The next slides. So the Article 14 consists of 19 sections. Section 1 to 5 covers the education right and system. Section 6 to 9 language policy. Section 10 to 13 science and technology. Section 14 to 18 arts and culture. Section 9 is about sports. Provision are mostly self-executing for individual rights, education access, and academic freedom. Article 15 consists of 4 sections. Section 1 to 3 protect family and marriage. Section 4 covers elderly care provision or non-self-executive policy statements. So next slide please. Good day everyone. I'm Jalai Marisa and I'll be discussing the Article 14 about the education, science and technology, art, culture, and sport from Section 1 to 3. Next slide. So Section 1 is, in Section 1, the Constitution says that the government must protect and promote the right of every citizen to quality education at all levels. So, but what does that mean? So, quality education means students should have good and competent teacher, proper classroom and facilities, and lastly, lessons that are useful for real life and future jobs. On the other hand, accessible education means everyone should have the chance to study even though they are poor, living far away, or have disabilities. So basically, education should not only be good, it should also be available to all citizens of the Philippines. So next slide, please. Next slide. Fine again. Cover na siya. So, next slide na po. Na-cover na po yung siya. So let's talk about an example of a case where Section 1 was proposed to use. So St. Paul College versus the BRR during the 2013-2017. So what happened is the BRR used a rule requiring non-profit school to get a tax-exempted certificate and submit yearly financial report, or else lost their tax exemption. So St. Paul College's challenge this, saying violate the Constitution, which also grant tax exemption to educational institution. So its end up, the court ruling was, you said that the case was already moot, but agreed with the lower court the tax exemption for school are automatic or self-executing, and the BRI cannot add extra requirements. So hindi talaga pwede na yung ginawa ng BRI na kailangan nila i-add up yung mga requirement pa para ma-exempt lang yung mga school na to for taxes. So next, please. Next slide. So for Section 2. So ito yung mga duties ng state itself for education. First, it must provide a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education. This means from kindergarten to college, everything is connected. There are enough teachers, classroom, and learning materials. So second is, the government must provide free public education in elementary and high school. This means walang tuition fee in public schools. And also, elementary education is compulsory. This means yung mga bata from age and above must go to school. Kasi kung hindi, yung mga parents nila can face penalties if they do not send their children to school. So, next slide please. So third one is the government must financially support the student. So such as ito na yung parang nagbibigay sila ng scholarships, student loans, and subsidies sa mga estudyante. Especially sa mga deserving and underprivileged na student na needed talaga ng financial support. So fourth is the government should support alternative learning system like non-formal and informal education, self-learning, or out-of-program program. These are helpful for people who cannot attend regular school. Ito na yung us sa mga different, mga alternative learning systems class para sa mga hindi talaga nakaka-go to school. So, fifth one is the government must provide a training program for persons with disability and out-of-school youth. So, yung mga program ito, multi-focus siya dito sa mga job skills, civic knowledge, and practical abilities. So, next slide, please. Next slide pa rin. Next case. So, this is the case kung saan ginamit din yung Art Section 2. So, Senator Gingona versus the government or the Congress itself noong 1980 to 1921. So, yung nag-propose yung Congress na i-reduce yung budget for education or slash down. Versus Senator Gingona, nag-complain siya about this. Kasi sabi niya, this was wrong because the Constitution says the state must support education just like what stated in the Section 2. Nina. So yung ruling ng court is decide sila na yung Congress can decide how much budget to give, but education must still be given enough importance and funding. It cannot be totally neglected. So pwede nila i-slash down, pero hindi talaga parang konti na lang yung bigay na subsidy for the education or education itself. So, yun ang court ruling nila. So, Section 3. Next slide, please. So, Section C. So, ito yung ito yung mga kailangan dapat ituro sa school. So, first of all school must teach the Constitution, because this helps to understand the rights and responsibilities as citizens. So, second, school must promote important values such as patriotism, nationalism, that means loving and being proud of our own country. So, and also respect for the human rights, which is a hero like Rizal and other heroes that had protected our country before, and good moral character and discipline, and also develop their critical and creative thinking, and explore more on science and technology knowledges, and develop more about their vocational skill. In short, school should not only teach academics but also help students become responsible, skilled, and morally upright citizens. Third. Next slide, please. So third, it's about religion in public schools. So religion instruction is allowed, pero siya, but optional lang siya kasi kailangan, pero need din siya ng permission, written permission ng parent para kung mag-agree sila na ipapasok yung anak na doon o hindi. So, ito din, pang-complete additional siya, dapat it must not cost anything to the government. So, parang, okay, hindi na siya parang nag-adapt ng funding para ibigay hindi na mag-adapt sa fund na ibigay ng government para sa fund na to sa certain program na to. So, ito yung sa next slide, please. Next slide. So, ito yung case na kung saan ginamit na bring up yung Section 3. So, college teacher or COTES-COP, which stands for Coalition of Technical and School Collective Union of the Philippines versus the Department of Education. Ito nangyari ito noong 2018. So, ito nangyari. Teacher complained because subjects like Filipino and literature were removed from the college. They said this violated the Constitution, which required teaching Filipino culture and values, like what I stated during kanina sa session 3. So, yung court ruling nila is, sabi sa, allowed do yun, pero do i-remove do yun. And kasi pwede diba kailangan i-specify din yung provision na to. So, they end up, in-integrate na to yung mga subject na to sa K-12 para ma-satisfy lang provision na to. So, kasi nakastate naman sa Constitution, dapat daw, nandun, parang available sa lahat ng all level, pero hindi specifically sa college stuff. So, okay lang i-remove siya, but nandun siya sa ibang school levels. So, that's all. Thank you po. Next presenter.
Hi everyone, I am Hazel Vivantal and I will be discussing the Section 4 and Section 5 of Article 14. So first, the first paragraph of Section 4, this part means both public and private schools are important in the education system. It's not only the government schools that matter, private schools also play a big role. But even if schools are private, the government still has the right to supervise and regulate them. This is to make sure that the students receive good quality education and also the schools follows the rule. For example is that a private school still needs to follow the standards that set by the DepEd or the Department of Education, like having the right curriculum, qualified teachers, and safe facilities. Number 2, this means it talks about who can own and manage schools. It says that schools in the Philippines should mostly be owned by Filipinos, at least 60%. And they should also be controlled and managed by Filipino citizens. Also, schools cannot be created only for foreigners, and foreign students should not make up more than 1/3 of the total students. For example, an international school in Manila can accept foreign students, but most of the students should still be Filipinos. Exemption is that, however, school for foreign diplomats and their families are allowed to follow different rules. Next slide, or number 3, this part is about taxes. If a school is non-profit and uses all its money only for education, it does not have to pay taxes. This helps schools use more of their funds for students, like improving classrooms, facilities, or giving scholarships. Private schools that earn profit may also get tax benefits, but they must follow certain conditions like limiting profits and reinvesting in the school. For example, a non-profit school that uses all its funds to improve learning materials and classrooms will not be taxed. Number 4, this part states that donations or contributions given to schools are not taxed, as long as they are used only for educational purposes. This encourages people and companies to support education. For example, if someone donates computers to a public school, they will not be taxed as long as the computers are used by students. Next, ano nga ba yung state supervision and regulation? So, it means that the government has the authority to monitor and guide all schools. Even if a school is private, it still needs to follow the rules and standards set by the government. For example, schools must follow the curriculum and policies from the Department of Education or DepEd to make sure students get proper education. How about 60% Filipino ownership? So it means that most of the ownership of schools should belong to Filipinos, at least 60%. The purpose of this is to make sure that education in the country is mainly controlled by Filipinos, and serve Filipino interests. Next is religious schools. So it simply means that religious groups are allowed to build and manage schools, for example, Catholic or Christian schools. But even if they are run by religious groups, they still need to follow government rules when it comes to education. Lastly, how about no exclusive foreign schools? This means schools cannot be made only for foreign students. Schools in the Philippines should still be open mainly to Filipinos. However, there are exemptions, like school for diplomats or foreign families, if allowed by law. Next, this case is the Commissioner of International um, wait, Commissioner of Internal Revenue versus Lasallian Educational Innovators Foundation. So, ano nga ba yung nangyari sa case na to? So, this case involves Lasallian Educational Innovators Foundation and the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So basically, LaSalle is a non-profit educational institution and they asked for a tax refund. They said that the money they earned from their educational services, like tuition and school-related activities, should not be taxed. But the BIR disagreed. They argued that some of the income was like businesses or proprietary income, so it should still be taxed. Now the issue went to the Supreme Court of the Philippines. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of LaSalle. Favor nila yung LaSalle dito sa case na to. The court said that as long as the school is non-stock and non-profit, and the money is used directly only for education and education only, then it is automatically tax exempt. So, sinasabi na if yung tax or yung money is ginagamit for educational purposes, automatically tax and exempt or hindi na kailangan sila mag-pay ng tax. So meaning the BRR cannot just tax that income or deny the exemption if it's clearly used for educational purposes. So for a simple idea for this case, if the money is used for teaching, classroom, scholarship, or school programs, then it should not be taxed. The real life effect of this case, because of this decision, schools like LaSalle can use more of their funds for students, like giving scholarships, improving facilities, or supporting science and research programs without worrying about taxes. So next, we will go to the section 5 of Article 14. So first is the regional and sectoral needs. So this number 1 or the first paragraph, it means that the government should not consider the different needs of each place and groups of people when making education policies. Not all areas are the same. What students need in the province might be different from those in big cities. For example, in far areas like Mindanao, schools might focus more on access to basic education, while in cities like Manila, the focus can be more on technology and advanced learning. Next is the academic freedom. So it means, or it simply means that colleges and universities have the freedom to decide what to teach, how to teach, and how to run their school. They are not controlled too much by the government in terms of ideas and teaching methods. Example, a university can design its own curriculum or choose teaching styles that they think are best or suitable for their students. Third is the right to choose a course. So it means that every Filipino has the right to choose what course or profession they want to take or what they prefer. But of course, they still need to meet the school's requirements, like entrance exams or grades. For example, is that if you want to become a doctor, you can choose that path, but you still need to pass the requirements of the school. Next, number 4 is the rights of teachers and school staff. This means the government should support teachers in improving their skills and growing in their profession. It also says that not just teachers but also other school staff like office staff or maintenance workers should be protected and treated fairly. For example, teachers can attend trainings or get promotions, and school staff should have proper working conditions. Lastly, number 5, priority budget for education. This simply means education should be one of the top priorities when it comes to government budget. The government should invest in education so that good teachers will be encouraged to teach and stay in profession for the benefits also for the students. For example, if teachers are paid well and have a good benefits, more talented people will choose to become teachers and stay in the job. Next, I will recap academic freedom. It means colleges and universities are free to teach, research, and share ideas without unfair control from others, including the government. They can decide how they teach and what topics to discuss. Next is right to choose a course. So every citizen or every person has the freedom to choose the course or career they want or prefer. But of course, they still need to pass the school requirements. Next is the professional advancement of teachers. This means the government should help teachers grow in their careers. They should be given opportunities like training, seminars, and promotions. Next is, or lastly, equitable admission requirements. So this simply means that schools should have fair and reasonable rules when accepting students. No one should be treated unfairly. It means they should be treated equally. Lastly, an example case for this section 5 is the University of the Philippines versus ISON. So this case involves the University of the Philippines and a professor named Aison. So ang Aison is the name pala siya ng professor or ng teacher. So what happened is that the professor was dismissed from his job, pinatanggal siya because of his involvement in political activism outside the classroom. He argued that this violated his right to academic freedom, which is protected under the Constitution. The case was brought to the Supreme Court of the Philippines. Now the Supreme Court explains something important. Academic freedom means that teachers have the right to teach, research, and express their ideas freely, especially inside the university. However, the court also said that this freedom is not absolute. In this case, they ruled that although academic freedom is protected, the university still has the right to discipline its employees if needed, especially if the issue is not directly related to teaching or academic work. Hindi daw siya related sa education, something like that. So, in the end, the court recognized and protected academic freedom, but they still allowed the dismissal because it was seen as a valid administrative decision, not an attack on teaching freedom, rather. So for this case, in simple idea, teachers are free to express ideas and teach openly, but they still need to follow university rules and responsibilities. Real life meaning of this is that this case shows that academic freedom is protected, but there should still be a balance between freedom and discipline inside schools. That's all for the section 4 and 5. Proceed to the section 6.
Hello everyone, I am Joanna Ferbi-Castillo and I will be discussing Article 14, Section 6 to 9 of the Constitution. So, Section 6 of the Constitution talks about the national language of the Philippines. Language refers to the words, pronunciation, and rules used by a group of people to communicate. On the other hand, a dialect is just a variation of a language used in a specific place. So yung language is very important because it allows people to express ideas, thoughts, and feelings. It is considered a social institution, meaning it was created by people to communicate with each other. So language is often called the soul of a nation. This is said by the Constitution. It is not just for communication, but it also reflects our culture, history, and our identity as Filipino. Next. Next. So Section 6 clearly states that the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. Historically, hindi ito nangyari agad. Sa 1935 Constitution, the government was asked to develop a national language based on one existing language, which later became a Tagalog-based Filipino. So during the 1973 Constitution, the idea was changed. So instead of isang language, it becomes Filipino become a combination of different languages and dialects. So ngayon, sa 1987 Constitution, Filipinos continues to evolve. It is no longer based on only one language, but it is also enriched by all Philippine language. So, bakit nga ba kailangan ng national language? So, the Constitution recognized that one weaknesses of the country before was the lack of a common language. So because Filipinos speak many differential regional languages, it becomes harder to achieve unity. This is why the government promotes Filipino to serve as a symbol of national unity and identity. So yung role ng government dito is that they take steps to use Filipino in official communication and education. This means that Filipino should be used in government transaction. It should be used in communication between official, and it should be promoted as a language of instruction in schools. Next. There was a case where some group questioned the removal of Filipino subjects in college under the K-12 program. They argued that this violates the Section 6 because Filipino should be used and promoted in education. However, hindi nag-agree ang Supreme Court. The court said that Section 6 is not self-executing, meaning it still needs a law from Congress to fully apply it. The court also explained that the government has the freedom to decide how Filipino will be used in education. So even if Filipino subjects were removed from college and transferred to lower level, it was still valid and not a violation of the Constitution. Next. So, Article 14, Section 7 talks about the official languages of the Philippines. So, the Constitution states that for communication and instruction, the official languages are Filipino and English. This means both languages are used in government and education. Filipino will always remain an official language, but Congress can decide in the future if English will still be used or replaced. It is also said that regional language like Chabacano, Tausug, Bisaya, and other can be used as auxiliary language. This means they help in communication and teaching, especially in areas where people are more comfortable using their local language. So lastly, Spanish and Arabic are not official languages, but they are promoted on a voluntary and optional basis. Next. So, official languages are the languages used by the government in important areas like laws, court proceedings, public services, and education. So, there are two main purposes. First is communication, which include the government transactions, announcement, and official documents. Second is instruction, meaning these languages are used in teaching in school. So English is still very important because it is the global language of business, science, and technology. It helps Filipino compete internationally and access global knowledge. At the same time, Filipino remain important because it represents our national identity and unity. So the Constitution gina-encourage nila na i-use natin yung both language so that Filipinos can be skilled locally and globally. Next. So, in the case of Kapil versus the DepEd, the issue was whether English could be used as the main language in teaching instead of Filipino. Some people believe that Filipino should be prioritized. However, the Supreme Court ruled that both Filipino and English are equal. This means the government can choose which language to use depend on the subjects, like using English for math and science. So the court also explained what regional languages can help in teaching, while Spanish and Arabic are only optimal. So in short, the decision confirmed that using both Filipino and English in education is constitutional and allowed. Next. So, Article 14, Section 8 explains how Constitution is being presented and understood by the people. So, paano nga ba gina-present ang Constitution sa tao? So, the Constitution must be officially written or promulgated in both Filipino and English. This means that both versions are official and valid. It is also said that the Constitution should be translated into major regional language as well as Arabic and Spanish, so more Filipino can understand it. This is important because the Philippines has many languages with over 100 linguistic groups, so translation can help make the Constitution more accessible to everyone. Next. So, Section 8 also shows that the bilingual policy of the government, using both in Filipino and English. English is still used because many legal concepts and court decisions are based on English and American law. Pareho na lang yung sa Bill of Rights. At the same time, Filipino is used to make the Constitution closer and more understandable to the people. So translation into regional language is also important, so people in different areas can better understand the law in terms of interpretation. English is usually followed because it was the original language used, but if there is a confusion, the Filipino version can help explain the meaning. This ensures clarity and accessibility. Next. So in this case, the issue was whether both English and Filipino version of the Constitution can be used in interpreting the law. The Supreme Court ruled that both versions are valid and official. This means that if there is a confusion in one version, the other version can be used to clarify the meaning. The decision supports Section 8 because it confirms that having the Constitution in multiple languages help ensures proper understanding and correct interpretation. Next. Article 14, Section 9. It talks about the creating a National Language Commission wherein the Constitution requires Congress to establish this commission to compose of representatives from different regions and fields. Its main role is to develop, promote, and preserve Filipino and other Philippine language. So the commission is important because it ensures that our national language represents all Filipino, not just one group. Filipino is expected to continue developing by combining regional language with Tagalog as its base and adding words from other local and foreign languages. Next. So, the National Language Commission is responsible for several important functions. First, it includes research to improve Filipino and other language. Second, it coordinates the language efforts, meaning it organizes programs and policies related to language. Third, it promotes and propagates Filipino. It encourages people to use it. And lastly, it helps preserve other Philippine languages, especially those at the risk of disappearing. So compared to older organizations like the Institute of National Language, this commission has a broader and more exclusive role. Next. One example of this is the Commission in Action is the Komisyon sa Wikang Pilipino or KWF. They partner with schools like the University of the Assumption to create languages centers that support teaching and research. They also promote indigenous culture like reviving the Baybayin script. Next. So, for more examples is that KWF also works with groups like the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples to protect local languages. They even conduct seminars in government offices to encourage the use of Filipino in official communication. So, this activity shows how the Commission helps develop, promote, and preserve our languages. Thank you. Next.
Now, I'm Hannah Ayesha Majid and I'll now discuss the Section 10. So, Section 10, this explains that yung science and technology daw are important and essential sa progress ng country. Kaya the government should provide support for research, innovation, and education. And dapat mag-help din daw ang state to develop and use local technologies para maging self-reliant or independent and para ma-improve yung buhay ng mga citizen. For example, the government supports for research and innovation through DOST since DOST can give scholarship to Filipino students in science and engineering. Meron din sa PhilRice, which is the Philippine Rice Research Institute. It is where PhilRice trains Filipino farmers on better ways to plant rice. Next, please. Next slide. Next. So, an example for this section is which is the Pearl and Dean. So, this case states that si Pearl and Dean is nag-create daw siya ng new advertising system. And yung isang company, which is yung Shoemart, nag-create din daw ng similar system nang walang permission. Kaya, nung nasa court daw, since di daw na patent ni na Pearl ang system, kaya walang magagawa daw na legal protection. Pero yung court is gi-emphasize na dapat pa rin i-protect yung local inventions kasi important to sa environment. Next slide. So, for Section 11, dito it states or explains that yung government is gina-encourage yung mga private companies or individual na support sa science and research like sa pagbibigay ng cash incentives, scholarship, and financial support sa students, scientists, and inventors. So, for example, incentives like tax deduction, it encourages yung mga private companies to support research like through the Congress of the Philippines, or an example of private companies is yung Unilab. Yung Unilab, nag-conduct sila ng medical and pharmaceutical research para mag-develop ng and improve medicine made in the Philippines. This is an example of yung private company is nag-help siya in applied scientific research. Next, please. So, additionally, example is scholarship and financial help for science and students and researchers. Like I stated earlier, na yung DOST is nag-give ng mga scholarship to students nag-take ng science, engineering, and technology courses. CHED also provides yung mga financial assistance and grants sa mga deserving college students na related sa science programs. Next slide. So, example of the case, which is yung kay Chua, mean that yung case na to is si Chua is inventor daw siya at nag-apply siya ng government incentives. Kaso, yung isang company is kinasuhan siya. Kaya yung benefits niya ay nag-pause. Pero yung korte is in favor kay Chua kasi nga, dapat mag-support ang government sa inventor since nagbe-benefit to sa country. Next slide. So, sa Section 12, it ginamin dito is dapat yung government is mag-bring in or mag-adapt ng mga useful technologies from ibang bansa para magamit natin dito sa Pilipinas. At gina-encourage din to yung mga businesses, local governments, and yung mga communities na mag-help na mag-create ng mga technologies para ma-improve yung daily life ng mga citizens. So, example of this is yung mga LGUs, yung mga Department of Information and Communication, nag-partner siya sa LGU and schools and community groups para for example, mag-provide ng mga free public Wi-Fi, mga computer and digital skills training, and online services in communities. Parang in this way, parang nakakapag-help sila to create a local innovation. And another example din ma-relate natin dito is yung DOST, nag-help din siya ng mga small businesses and school para mag-use mga new machine, food processing technology, o yung mga laboratory methods na originally is galing sa mga research centers from other countries. Pero it is suggested nga para ma-fit yung local needs and yung budget ng country. Next slide. Ang example ng case nito, next slide please. Ang example nga ng case nito, which is yung sa Municipality of Taytay. Dito, sa case na to, sa Municipal of Taytay daw, is gumamit sila ng solar-powered irrigation system na based sa open source technology. And yung isang private company is gonna-tear stop yung project. Pero yung Supreme Court ruled or in favor sa municipal kasi since yung aim naman nito is magbe-benefit para naman sa public. Next slide. Next slide please. So section 13 task. So dito ginamin dapat daw yung government is i-protect yung intellectual property ng Filipino inventors, scientists, or creators sa work nila para hindi magamit ng ibang tao nang walang permission. For example, dito is protecting Filipino artists and their song. Like example, Ben and Ben. When Ben and Ben nag-write and nag-record ng song, no one can sell or use or upload it for business without permission. So, itong section na to is gina-protect yung creation ni Ben and Ben, and itong section na to is applicable din siya sa mga Filipino inventions. Yun. So, ang example ng case dito is yung Filipino scientist, which is si Dr. Elena Reyes, is nag-develop siya ng organic pesticide derived from local seaweed. So, she patented her invention para mag-ensure is quality and affordability for Filipino farmers. And yung aim niya dito is, and may isang company is gumaya sa kanyang invention. And ginadefend ng mga opposing company na pwede lang daw gamitin yon kasi natural resources. Pero the court is in favor sila sa claim ni Dr. Reyes kasi daw, according to Dr. Reyes, kahit na naturally materials is yung ginawa niya is siya pa rin yung gumawa nun. Yun. And that's all. Next reporter, please.
So now I am John Allen T. Santos, and now I will discuss the section 14 to section 19. So first, section 14. So this simply means that state must preserve, enrich, and continuously develop Filipino culture while promoting unity despite the diversity. So next slide. So ano nga ba yung Filipino national culture? So this is the shared identity of Filipinos formed through history, native tradition, foreign influences, regional practices, arts, belief, and values. It reflects kung ano yung Filipino as one despite differences. So next term is the free artistic and intellectual expression. So this is the right of people to freely share ideas, opinions, creativity, and beliefs through art, literature, education, and other forms of expression without unfair government control. So this simply means that yung mga Filipino ay may karapatan sila gumawa or mag-share ng kanilang mga opinion. So next is culture. Culture is dynamic. So this means that there is no permanent or fixed culture. It changes and develops over time as society changes. So dito, yung duties ng state is to first preserve. This is where the state should protect traditions, languages, custom, indigenous knowledge, and heritage. Next is enrich. Dito, dapat yung state nag-improve ng culture by supporting education, artists, and cultural institution. So lastly is to ensure dynamic evolution. State should allow culture to grow naturally with modernization, globalization, and new ideas while keeping Filipino identity. Next slide. Here's an example of a case. So, long ago, medical sued that radio station after it aired reports that allegedly damaged the hospital's reputation. So the broadcaster claimed that it was protected by freedom of speech and press. But the Supreme Court ruled that freedom of expression is important in a democracy, but it does not protect false and defamatory statements. So the broadcaster was held liable for damages. Next slide. So, Section 15. So, this simply means that the states must support arts, literature, and protect historical and cultural heritage. So, next slide. So, ano nga ba yung patronage of state? So, this means na this is active support from the government for artists, writers, and cultural workers through funding, awards, recognition, museums, institution, and cultural program. So yung purpose nito is to help na i-preserve and i-promote yung arts and culture ng mga Filipino. So in some context, this calls padrino system. So ano nga ba yung padrino system? This is a practice where a person receives jobs, promotion, benefits, or funding because of personal connection, influences, or powerful supporter instead of qualification or merit. It is often criticized because it can lead to unfairness and favoritism. So another term is the artistic creation. So dito, these are the original works na ginawa ng artist gamit yung talento, imagination, and skill nila sa pang-painting, music, literature, and dance. So next slide. So, ito yung example na case. So, the case sa National Commission for Culture and Arts and versus the Cebu City, yung case dito involve actions affecting historical structure in Cebu City. So, the NCCA challenge measure that could harm protected heritage properties. So the Supreme Court ruled that the government has the duty to preserve and protect historical and cultural heritage. Heritage structure must be safeguarded. So next slide. So dito naman sa section 16, it simply means that all artistic and historical wealth of the country belongs to the nation and must be protected. So next slide. Next slide. So first term is the artistic and historic wealth. So these are important cultural treasures of the country, such as the old churches, ancestral houses, historical records, paintings, sculptures, artifacts, and archaeological discoveries. So they have been historical, artistic, and national value. So minsan ginagamit din ito sa promote ng ating culture. So next is the disposition. So yung disposition, this refers to the power of the government to regulate how cultural treasure are sought, transferred, exported, or preserved. Yung purpose nito is para ma-prevent yung mga illegal selling, destruction, or loss of the nation's heritage. Next, Neng. So, yung example na case dito is that sa protection of artistic and historic wealth versus the Malabago. So, the accused was charged for illegally excavating and removing cultural artifacts without authority. So, these items were considered part of country's historical treasure. So, yung decision dito ng Supreme Court upheld the conviction and stated that the cultural artifacts are part of the nation's patrimony and must be protected by the state. So, next slide. So, yung section 17. So, this simply means that the state must respect and protect the rights of indigenous peoples to preserve their culture and tradition. Next slide. So, when we say indigenous culture communities, these are groups of native Filipinos who have preserved their own identity, traditions, customs, languages, and leadership system since before colonization. So, yung example nito is yung mga various indigenous group across the Philippines, like yung mga, mga Tausug, mga ganon. So, under section 17, it protects the indigenous people and recognize their right to maintain their culture, identity, and self-defamation. So, ano nga ba yung duties ng state dito? First is to respect ancestral domains and traditional governance. So, the government must recognize their ancestral lands and respect their customary laws and leadership system. So next is to protect cultural identity in development plans. So dapat yung government projects and modernization program ay dapat hindi naga-destroy ng mga tradition and language or way of life ng mga indigenous people. So lastly, yung sa mga project na ginagawa, dapat na-i-include yung mga indigenous concern in policies. For example, their needs, rights, and opinion must be considered in national laws, programs, and planning. Next slide. So, yung sample case dito is yung kay Rights of Indigenous Cultural Communities, Cruz versus the Secretary of the Environment and the Natural Resources. So dito, the state universities question COA disallowances involving funding and benefits that affected the educational resources and service. So yung Supreme Court emphasized that the state must support access to education and cultural development through public institutions. So next slide. So dito sa section 18, yung first paragraph, this simply means that the state must make cultural opportunities available to all citizens. So dapat lahat should have the chances to learn, experience, and participate in arts and culture regardless of social or economic status. So this can be done through school, universities, museums, libraries, theaters, cultural centers, scholarship grants, and other public places or programs. So yung second paragraph naman, this state na the state must support researchers and studies about the arts and culture. So this means that funding and encouraging studies on Filipino traditions, languages, heritage, literature, music, dance, and other cultural expression to preserve and improve them for future generation. Next slide. So, yung state ensure that all citizens, whether mahirap man o mayaman, have an equal opportunities to enjoy and benefit from culture. So, yung schools and universities, educational institutions should teach arts, history, and language and culture to students. Next is the public and private cultural institution. So museums, libraries, theaters, galleries, and similar institutions should be accessible to everyone. And the community culture centers, dapat local centers should provide spaces for cultural activities, performances, and learning within communities. So lastly is yung scholarship. Dapat yung financial assistance and support should be given to every student, artists, and researchers so they can develop their talents and contribute to culture. So next slide. So an example of case is the case of the Philippine Association of State Universities and the College of PASUG versus the Commission on Audit. So dito, the state universities questioned COA disallowances involving funding and benefits that affected educational resources and services. So yung decision dito, the Supreme Court emphasized that the state must support access to education and cultural development through public institutions. Next slide. So dito naman sa section 19, it tackles about sport. So dito, the state must promote physical educational and as a school subject that develop physical fitness, coordination, health awareness, and discipline through exercise and game. It must also encourage sports, programs, league competition, and amateur sports. So this includes training athletes for local and international competition. The purpose is to develop self-discipline, teamwork, excellence, and to build citizens who are healthy and active. So yung sa paragraph 2 naman, all school, colleges, and universities must regularly conduct sports activities across the country. They should work together with athletic clubs, sports organization, and other sectors to strengthen sport participation and physical development among students. So next slide. So yun dito, this includes the physical education. So this is a subject in school that develop physical fitness, coordination, health awareness, and discipline. So dito, the state must promote physical education, which is a school that subject that develops students' physical fitness, coordination, health awareness, and discipline through exercise, games, and movement activities. So it helps students maintain a healthy and active lifestyle. So yung next naman is yung sport programs. So dito, the state must also encourage sports programs which are organized activities such as trainings, leagues, tournaments, and competition designed para ma-develop yung athletes and increase participation in physical activities. So yung mga programs na ito, it helps build self-discipline, teamwork, confidence, and excellence while creating a healthy and alert citizenry. So all schools are required to conduct regularly sports activities in cooperation with athletic clubs and other groups throughout the country. So next slide. So yung example na case dito is yung sa Philippine Olympic Committee versus the Philippine Basketball Association. So the dispute involved which sports body had proper authority and recognition to represent the Philippines in international basketball competition. So yung decision dito ng Supreme Court recognized the importance of organized sport governance and proper accreditation to ensure fair representation of country in global events. That's all for my report.
Hello, my name is Aikajin Aslamana, and I will be the last reporter for the Article 15, the family. Next. Starting with the Section 1, where the state recognizes the Filipino family as the foundation of the nation, and together with that, it discusses the concept of the family. Next. A family is a group of persons united by ties of marriage, blood, or adoption. Families' role are considered the basic social institution of the nation. It is the primary agent of socialization, meaning it is where individuals first learn values, norms, and behavior. And because the family is the foundation, its weakening is linked to social and economic problems. Therefore, the state is mandated to strengthen it. For the Family Week, Proclamation number 60 declares the last week of September annually as Family and Parents Week. Next, Hazel. So, in the case of Republic versus Molina, whether psychological incapacity were a ground to nullify marriage under Article 36 of the Family Code should be interpreted liberally or strictly. The Supreme Court ruled that it must be strictly interpreted. Psychological incapacity must refer to a serious, permanent, and incurable condition that existed at the time of marriage, meaning it cannot be used lightly to dissolve marriages. Since the Constitution declares the family as the foundation of the nation, the law should protect it and not make it easy to break. This case supports Section 1 by affirming the state's duty to protect and strengthen the family. Next, Hazel. Moving on to the Section 2 where it discusses about the marriage as an inviolable social institution. Next. It says here that under the family code, it is a permanent union between a man and a woman, where the characteristics is a status and a special contract, meaning the rights and obligations are governed by law where parties cannot agree to change essential aspects of marriage. For example, they cannot agree to a temporary marriage. When we say inviolable, this means it is sacred and cannot be destroyed or disregarded. Next, Hazel. Despite the policy to protect marriage, the law provides legal ways to address the problems. First is the declaration of absolute nullity of marriage, wherein the legal concept discusses the void ab initio, where it says that as if it never existed. So the effect of it is the marriage is legally considered to have never taken place. Both parties are free to remarry, wherein the common grounds are lack of essential formalities. For example, no marriage license or party is below 18 years old. For the psychological incapacity, as defined by Molina, it is a bigamous marriages and incestuous marriages or the marriage between close relatives. Next, Hazel. Next naman is the annulment of voidable marriage. The legal concept is it is valid until annulled, meaning the marriage was valid at the start but had a defect. The effect of it is the marriage is considered valid until the court declares it void. The effect is prospective from the date of annulment onwards, wherein both parties are free to remarry. The common grounds are lack of parental consent for ages 18 to 21. Also, either party was of unsound mind. We also have consent was obtained through fraud, force, intimidation, or undue influence. Next is physical incapacity to consummate the marriage or the impotence. Lastly is the existence of a serious and incurable sexually transmissible disease. Next. We also have the legal separation, wherein separation, not dissolution, meaning the spouses live apart and separate their properties. However, the marital bond remains intact. The effect of it is they are still husband and wife, neither can remarry. The common grounds are repeated physical violence or grossly abusive conduct. Next, we have the attempt on the life of one spouse against the other. We also have drug addiction and habitual alcoholism. Next is lesbianism or homosexuality, sexual infidelity or adultery or concubinage. Lastly is the abandonment without justifiable cause for more than 1 year. Next, Hazel. For number 4, we have the divorce for Muslim Filipinos. The legal basis of it is the Presidential Decree number 1083 or the Code of Muslim Personal Laws of the Philippines. The scope recognizes Sharia law where it allows the dissolution of marriage according to Islamic principles, wherein both parties are free to remarry. This is the only form of absolute divorce generally recognized in the Philippines for a specific sector. Last, Annex Hazel. Last, marital remedies, we have the judicial recognition of foreign divorce, wherein the basis is the Family Code, Article 26. It applies when a Filipino citizen is married to a foreigner. If the foreigner spouse obtains a valid divorce abroad, the Filipino spouse can ask a family court to recognize that divorce. It also allows the Filipino spouse to remarry in the Philippines, preventing the unfair situation where the foreigner is free to remarry but the Filipino is not. Next, Hazel. Moving on to the jurisprudence of Garcia versus Drilon, where the constitutionality of RA 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act was challenged. It was argued adoption and interfered with marital relations. The Supreme Court upheld the law. It ruled that protecting women and children from violence strengthens rather than weakens marriage and the family. While marriage is inviolable, the state has the duty to safeguard the dignity, safety, and welfare of the family members. Protecting the institution means ensuring it remains a just and humane environment. Next po. For number 3, section 3, it actually have four subsections. First is the right to found a family, wherein couples have the right to decide on the size of their family based on their faith and moral values, while they also have to consider the responsible parenthood. For number 2, this refers to the rights of the children. Children are entitled to care, support, and protection. They must be safeguarded from harm, abuse, and exploitation. Next po, Hazel. For number 3, this refers to the family living wage wherein the income earned should be sufficient to meet the needs of the whole family, not just an individual. For number 4, it was not included in the PowerPoint, but for number 4, it actually refers to the participation wherein families have a voice in government programs that affect them. So while mentioned here, the specific provision of people's participation in governance belongs to Article 13, wherein it tackles about social justice. Next. For the Republic Act number 8369, it states here that it establishes family courts to handle cases involving children and family relations specifically. Next po. For the case of Imbong versus Ocoa, the constitutionality of RA 10354 or the Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act was challenged. Petitioners argued it violated religious freedom and family autonomy under Section 3. However, the Supreme Court upheld most provisions of the law. It ruled that the state may promote responsible parenthood and health services. Despite that, it must respect religious freedom and informed choice. The state can enact social legislation to promote welfare, provided it respects the rights guaranteed in Article 15, Section 3. Next. Lastly, we have this Section 4, where it discusses the family has a duty to care for its elderly members, but the state may also do so through just programs of social security. Next. For the Republic Act number 9257 or the Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2010, amended by RA 10645, where it grants benefits such as 20% discount on medicines, food, transportation, and medical services. It also discusses the exemption from payment of individuals from income tax if minimum wage earner. It also mandates the establishment of senior citizens in all cities and municipalities. It discusses also the shared responsibility. First, as denied it because their marriage was void due to a prior undissolved marriage. She argued she was entitled as an elderly dependent under the Constitution. However, the Supreme Court ruled that while the Constitution mandates support for the elderly, claims for benefit must still follow legal standards. She failed to prove a valid marriage, so she could not claim as a legal spouse. However, she is not left without remedy. She may seek assistance from other state welfare programs. Next. And that concludes the discussion about the Article 14 and 15 of the Philippines 1987 Philippine Constitution. Again, we are the Group 5. Thank you very much.